The following training is sponsored by the Niagara Library System. We serve our member libraries in Niagara, Orleans, and Genesee counties. Please visit your local library homepage and use your library card to get access to streaming videos, downloadable music, audiobooks, ebooks, and even more from the comfort of your own home. Thank you. Hello, good to see everybody today. I am shifting gears slightly. I've been doing a book and a movie and talking about reluctant readers. So now I am going to be talking just very briefly about net neutrality and Section 230. We hear a lot about this. I ran into an article by John Brooken. You can see it here on the screen, and all of my references, of course, will be in the description per usual. So you can find the fact sheet and everything else that I'm going to talk about here that I've quoted. The article I ran into is this first one. Biden wants the FCC to fix net neutrality, but it can't yet, which of course caught my eye, and then I was like, well, what is it? And then the headline did its work. So I read the article and got a few definitions and infographics. Again, everything's on here, so let's jump into it. From John Brooken, on Friday, President Biden urged the Federal Communications Commission to restore net neutrality rules and to take steps to boost price transparency and competition in broadband. But the FCC can't do most or all of that yet because Biden hasn't nominated a fifth commissioner to break the 2-2 deadlock between Democrats and Republicans. Consumer advocacy groups have been urging Biden to nominate a third Democrat to the deadlocked FCC for months, but he still hasn't done so. What's causing the holdup isn't clear. Biden released a fact sheet describing an executive order focused on boosting competition in numerous industries. The order targets 4 broadband problems that it encourages the FCC to solve. So this actual executive order, I again have a link to it. I did take a look at it. It covers a huge amount of industries and basically overall competitiveness and kind of an anti-monopolistic approach to things. So I thought it was pretty interesting reading. But specifically for the FCC and specifically for net neutrality and broadband, President Biden wants the FCC to solve deals between ISPs, which is the internet service provider, between ISPs and landlords that limit tenants' choices, misleading advertised prices, high termination fees, and net neutrality. John goes on to say the order tackles 4 issues that limit competition, raise prices, and reduce choices for internet service. The Biden fact sheet's broadband section said more than 200 million U.S. residents live in an area with only 1 or 2 reliable high-speed internet providers, leading to prices as much as 5 times higher in these markets than in markets with more options. Competition almost always drives prices down. A related problem is landlords and internet service providers entering exclusivity deals or collusive arrangements that leave tenants with only one option. This impacts low-income and marginalized neighborhoods because landlord ISP arrangements can effectively block out broadband infrastructure expansion by new providers. That's one thing that can definitely happen. On the flip side of that, just to point out, sometimes because the ISP, the internet service provider, knows that they're getting X amount of customers, they can give the landlord, which would be through the customers, a price break then as well. So, but it does definitely, if you have a whole block of buildings or you have one landlord that has a bunch of buildings and then that landlord or that management company has made a deal with an ISP, that effectively blocks out everybody else. So it's really, overall in the long run, it's not always a good deal. So shifting over to net neutrality, Wikipedia provides a very basic definition of net neutrality, and there have been a lot of people, wider heads than mine, have argued back and forth about this. In general, it is the principle that internet service providers, ISPs, must treat all internet communications equally and not discriminate or charge differently based on user, content, website, platform, application, type of equipment, source address, destination address, or method of communication. With net neutrality, ISPs may not intentionally block, slow down, or charge money for specific online content. Without net neutrality, ISPs may prioritize certain types of traffic, meter others, or potentially block traffic from specific services while charging consumers for various tiers of service. That's a basic definition of net neutrality, and that's what President Biden wants the FCC to discuss or to tackle, and they haven't been able to yet because there's 4 and they're deadlocked 2 and 2. So another item that comes up quite a bit when you're talking about the internet is Section 230, and that refers to that section of the 1996 Communications Decency Act, so the CDA. In this infographic done by EFF, it's the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and Craig Newmark, they call it the CDA, so it's the Communications Decency Act, and it's Section 230, and it says, you can see this here, let me scroll a little bit, no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. And basically, it's CDA 230, as it says over here on the left, is a federal law that prevents websites, blogs, and forums from being held responsible for the speech of their users. They call it the most important law protecting internet speech. Basically, like it says here, CDA 230 protects web services and social networks such as Facebook, Twitter, and blogs from being held legally responsible for hosting or facilitating online speech. Without it, service providers would become targets for individuals, governments, and corporations who want to limit free expression. Under CDA 230, service providers are categorically protected against most legal claims based on what their users say or do, which means they can't be forced to censor user content. Now, it does say, note, it says right here, and again, let me scroll up a little so I know it's on the screen for sure. CDA 230 doesn't apply to intellectual property claims, those are copyright claims, and federal criminal law. And there's more information here on what if there were no protections. It talks about the different sites that could be sued, innovation could be diminished. Many sites may feel pressure to limit real-time posts, and they would need to hire reviewers and lawyers. They talk about here more lawyers to review the content. There might be financial damages, and of course, all of this would be passed to the online users. So a lot of the things that we take for granted that are free, like Facebook, they might then end up actually charging if Section 230 were not there. So just going on through the infographic, which is really interesting, and as I mentioned, I will have the link in the description. It would talk, the graphic goes on to talk about ISPs would be motivated to censor content, and then the result, you and your friends might have different access to different websites depending on your service provider. And actually, you can see that here, and they give real-life examples of countries that don't have this type of protection, which is Thailand and Turkey, they mention. And in Thailand, 2007 Computer Crimes Acts hold bloggers and ISPs criminally liable if someone using their service or site criticizes the Thai royal family or distributes photos designed to harm someone's reputation. Okay. In Turkey, here, it's a crime to criticize the founder of the Turkish Republic or to disparage Turkishness. The Turkish government has banned YouTube several times. Banned YouTube, the whole site, several times for hosting videos in violation of these laws. So there's a lot of repercussions. How many people would be affected? About 240 million internet users just in the US. There's users here on Facebook, tweets, and then they do mention Yelp as a review site. So Yelp would pretty much cease to exist if it had to be responsible for all the content that was put on it. So site operators and internet service providers host and carry enormous amounts of speech. and they're really in no position to evaluate the legality of what their users do. Again, and here are the sources here that were cited in the infographic itself. This is just to serve as an introduction to it. There are people who know way more about it, who have argued back and forth online. I mean, real arguments, not like comment arguments. There's lots of other information, so give some love to the original author, check out the source links, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks, take care, bye now.